Hey, good Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Each and every Thursday here at Volquest.com and Volquest on the YouTube channel. Brent Hubbs, we're at 18,000 subscribers and some change after a strong push on Tuesday night. We happy about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep growing. Everybody keep liking, keep hitting the like button, tell your friends about it, subscribe, and be a part of our growing channel. And we're obviously very excited about the video we produce, the podcast, and everything that we do. So thankful for everybody's continued support, and let's roll on towards 20,000. The more the merrier is what I say, Austin Price. The more the merrier.
Yeah, I mean, if you like any of these videos we do, get notified the moment we post a new one, and so I'm with you. I think we continue just to grow by leaps and bounds, and everybody's embraced the video era, and here we are.
And a big reason for that push is because of the Volquest podcast, Mailbag Podcast. And we couldn't make that possible without our friends and their help over at Exterior Home Solutions. And they can help you as well, getting into those spring months. Summer's right around the corner. If you need anything upgraded, replaced, anything at all in your home, Exterior Home Solutions has you covered. Give them a call today for a free estimate. That's at 865-524-5888. And you can find them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. We have got a whole lot of questions to get in here to today. We'll go ahead and start with a really good one. And I know Austin Price is going to be excited about this one. This is from Action0212. Give me the top 5 recruits you think the Vols will land.
Action's also known by the name Steve in Lexington.
I can't hear you, Austin. What was that?
I got nothing for you, Kane. Top 5. Who I think the biggest 5 targets are. I think Kamarion Franklin's right up there for me. You're deep in that one. There's some Tennessee people around Kamarion that that I think help the situation from a standpoint of Orange is kind of always on the brain. It's kind of I'm not gonna say it's as deep as it was with Billy Sills and Darnell Wright, but at the same time it's one where I think Tennessee's the Orange is always going to kind of be around. Doesn't mean you land him, but I think it puts you, definitely in the door, and you're deep in that one. I think Jaden Riddell's another. Edwin Spillman, Boo Carter, and then for me, I'll go Amari Jefferson. I think to round out my 5, and I say Amari Jefferson, and here's why. Because I think, everybody's going to say Ryan Wingo, Mike Matthews, and I think those guys are important. I think it's also unrealistic to think you're probably landing both. I think if you did, I'd be unbelievable if you could land both. And I think you certainly try to do that. But I think in a perfect world, you land one. And that's where I think Amari Jefferson comes in, because I think he's a really good player. I think he's very gettable in Chattanooga. You're battling Georgia, Alabama, and some of it, but you've got that in-state, pool. Even though he technically, I guess, grew up an LSU fan. Ultimately, I think he's important because I think, he's one that I think you can lock down this summer and head into fall.
Let me rephrase that question real quick, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but as we enter the month of May, who are the top 3 targets Tennessee might be in the best position with right now? It doesn't mean that they're going to jump in the boat anytime soon, but who are maybe 3 or 4 that Tennessee's in a great position with right now?
Well, I think Tennessee's done a good job with Max Anderson, the offensive lineman from Texas. He's going to, officially visit in the month of June. I think Tennessee continues to be in a good spot with Peyton Lewis, running back from the state of Virginia. He's going to officially visit in the month of June. And, number 3, it's hard not to go Boo Carter or Edwin Spillman. Again, those guys have been Tennessee leans for a long time, and they're taking their time. They're going through the process. They're going to take their visits more than likely, and then to make a decision after that.
All right, let's go to Reltney for Live. What should our expectations be for the following football players in 2023? Brent, you can lead us off here. John Campbell, Gabe Judy Lawley, Joshua Josephs, Omar Norman Lott.
Well, I think John Campbell better be a starter, or that's not a good thing for Tennessee. That means that wasn't a great transfer take, and that means Tennessee's got some more issues at tackle than just finding a right tackle. So Campbell better be a starter. I think Omar Norman Lott's the guy we didn't talk about probably enough in the spring. I think he's going to be in the rotation, in the regular rotation for Rodney Garner. Joshua Joseph, the sky's the limit. I think for Joshua Joseph, it's about Joshua Joseph. How much work is he going to put in this summer? Where's he going to be in the weight gain? Is he getting completely dialed in to being a college athlete year round and all the things that he needs to do? And then Gabe Judy Lawley, I think is, what are you looking at? We've talked about, Grant, that puzzle and those puzzle pieces in the secondary. How do those play out? Nico Slaughter seems to make the most sense at one corner. What's the other corner spot look like? Coming out of spring, it was Kamal Haddon. Does Kamal Haddon do everything he needs to do all summer long to remain that? Does Judy Lawley pass him? I think that one's going to be more interesting to see in terms of exactly where Gabe factors into this deal.
What are our expectations for a Judy on the Vol Network broadcast that we had talked about in the past?
Oh, I can work that in. If he's on the field.
Well, if you can work that in, he'll get on the field. I mean, yeah, we talked about the veterans in the defensive backfield before on this podcast, and just a matter of trying to figure out, the puzzle pieces to put that together. Getting your best, however many guys on the field, and if that includes Julie Lawley or not, I guess remains to be seen. If he's half as impressive on the field as he is in a press conference setting, he's got my vote, because I don't know anything about the kid other than listen to him talk. He's impressive.
I'll give it a 1% chance, Grant. That
1% chance of Judy?
Yeah, 1%
starts.
No, 1% that you'll do that on a Vol Network broadcast. Go Judy.
What are you gonna break my heart like that for?
We'll go to Upper East Tennessee Vols right now. How is baseball recruiting for next year? According to Perfect Game 2024 recruiting classes, Tennessee sits at the top, followed by LSU, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Florida State. A couple 24 commits locally here around the Knoxville area. A pair from Farragut High School who are doing really well, all district players this past season. Pitcher Stratton Scott, and he's also the grandson of Bobby Scott. His father also played on the 98 National Championship team, so there's a tie in there. And then Brennan Siegler, who's an outfielder. Those are two local guys. But Tennessee in the class of 2024 up there, and I believe they're top 5 in the class of 2025 as well. Baseball recruiting, it starts really, really early in comparison to maybe some other ones. That could also change due to some of the new rules. Go ahead.
And you get the Loy kid from Pigeon Forge, who's had a terrific year as well.
Yeah, he's
as a commitment.
Yeah, he's a class before in 23, but gosh, the mullet game is strong. His pitching stats are super strong. I saw Jesse Smithy tweet out some of his stats the other day. He's had a really, really good year. Let's go to Athlon. A couple of questions here. What's the latest with Emmanuel Okoye?
I feel really good about where Tennessee's at with that. I would expect him to announce in the coming days.
How much of a roller coaster do you expect this recruiting class to be in terms of just you're in it for so many deeper guys and elite players? Well,
what you're going to see here is again, it's kind of like, everybody, panicked on, what was it, Monday. Rusty comes over from 24/7, and then the Oklahoma Rivals comes over to On3, and all of a sudden here comes all these predictions because they just got here. So they're going to take their predictions that they had at an old place and make them the new predictions at On3, because ultimately that gets people talking, right? All of a sudden it comes up on 3, Oklahoma Insider predicts Williams Maneri to Oklahoma. No new intel there. But I think when you're recruiting against some big time schools, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, you name it, like there's going to be a lot of roller coaster, a lot of yo-yoing. There's going to be a lot of different intel. It's like I said about, Jaden Riddell. Yeah, Georgia feels confident. Tennessee feels confident. And I think that it ultimately is right around 50-50, and depending on which side of the coin you're on, it could be 51-49 Bulldogs, it could be 51-49 Tennessee. Either way, it's super, super close. And so I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster with some of these high-end guys. Luckily, most of them are still going to come off the board in late June, early July after official visits. There's only a few. Mike Matthews, Ryan Wingo are two of them. That Nate Frazier, running back at Mater Dei, is another that I see going into the fall, taking a bunch of official visits in the summer, taking more official visits with the rule change in the fall, and kind of being more of an old school recruitment. Most everybody else, I still think, is coming off in June or July.
And then a final one here from Mathrun Grant. Will Tennessee consider redshirting Nico? I can't imagine that would ever be a situation because he's the backup quarterback.
And you're probably not going to bank on him being 4 years, being here 4 years, or being here potentially 5 years. I mean, look at what Joe did last year in terms of just, he's playing late against Missouri, he's playing late against whoever. I mean, there's going to be a lot of games later in the year where Tennessee probably has a pretty big lead and you want to get him some snaps. So I think you redshirt a guy that you think is going to be here 4 years and maybe could benefit from being here 5 years when you're the number one overall player in the country and a 5-star quarterback at that. I don't think there's any need for a redshirt.
Volunteered 87. Brent, is the NCAA SEC going to go to the NFL model where they announce kickoff times when they announce the schedule a few months before the season?
Well, there's that talk that they're going to announce those and they're going to eliminate that 10-day window, 2-week window deal. But I don't think. I think their model is going to be the NBC NFL model, Grant, and that's flex scheduling late in the year where you can make that adjustment as you need to. So, no, they're not going to announce, in my opinion, 12 start times whenever the official schedule is released.
Now, do you think they could, though, Hubs, do what he was insinuating, which is come out with the thing, but also do what you're insinuating? So, hey, right now, Texas A&M LSU set for 3:30 on CBS, but if Texas A&M, is not very good, it gets bumped and something else goes to 3:30 later on. That way everybody can plan a little bit more. Is that possible?
I think that creates more confusion than anything else with people. Now you're going to have some games that are locked in, are those preseason picks that happen, every year, where teams lock those in. They get announced around SEC media days or sometime over the middle part of the summer. But I just don't see them announcing that many start times. Now they're trying to eliminate that 7-day deal for sure. And that's the plan, but I don't think they're going to announce everything preseason.
This is a personal attack on me because I spend my Mondays at noon waiting on a SEC tweet saying this is what time the kickoffs are for 2 weeks from now, and then I'm rushing to figure out if I need to book a car or book a hotel or what are the travel arrangements for Baton Rouge if it's a noon game versus a 7 p.m. game. I write 400 words on Sunday night to have that prepared for Monday at noon. So if they take this away from me, I'm going to have to completely rearrange the start of my week. So it's a personal attack on me, obviously.
I mean, I think they would like to do that, to get as many games announced as they can in the preseason or before the 2-week deal, just to make it easier on fans. And I know that's been the plan and that's what they want to do. At the same time, too, you're getting a gazillion dollars from ESPN in your TV contract. If ESPN wants to alter something and put something at night instead of at noon in the afternoon because they're two undefeated teams, I have a hard time believing that TV influence is not going to be there to be able to move some stuff around. Not 6 days out. We're going to eliminate that, but I think you're going to see them still have the flexibility to move stuff around within their network because of what they're paying the SEC.
This next question's from me. How many zeros are in a gazillion, bazillion, bajillion, whatever you said just a second ago?
More than you and I can ever dream of in our lifetime.
Amen, buddy.
There's a whole bunch of money.
Let me get my bank statement. I'll figure that out. I'll start counting zeros.
How many Peter Millar shirts can I buy for that?
You can buy Peter Millar himself.
That's right. He can come.
You already got a closet full.
Listen, we already talked about last time. He lives in your attic.
I gotta get my guy Scott Mahoney and see if I can get a line like the Austin Price collection.
Bestseller, right?
That's a little much there, AP.
Just a bit. Let's move on. Sam Smith, 2233. What about this Georgia team should scare Tennessee this weekend, and what are the causes for Seth Halverson's struggles? As far as Georgia, they got a core group of guys in that order that are pretty talented. Charlie Condon is hitting over 400. Connor Tate hitting close to 400, and then Parker Harbor hitting close to 300. All those guys over 10 home runs, 40 plus RBI. The first one's got 57 RBI. So there's a little bit of pop in the heart of that order for sure for Georgia. This is a team that I mean, it's kind of up and down. Dropped a series to Ole Miss last weekend. Before that, swept a series to Arkansas. So they're capable of beating you, but they're kind of all over the place. So I think Tennessee certainly good enough to win this series on the road, taking 2 of 3. But you better come and bring your A game, especially with your road struggles. And then for Seth Halverson, I mean, I'm no pitching coach, but in things that I've noticed and things that I've kind of asked around about a little bit, some bad luck. He's getting hit hard a little bit, leaving pitches up in the zone. His off speed, they're not chasing it like they were in the beginning of the season. So it doesn't feel like Tony is too, not upset, but too worried about Seth Halverson, at least the last time we spoke to him on the record about Seth Halverson. So we'll see how he responds, but Tennessee definitely needs to get him going because he's going to be a guy that's going to be counted on. Let's go to Smoky Man 15. Grant, who needs to have an A-plus summer to secure some playing time this fall, in your opinion?
Gabe Judy Lally. We just talked about him. I mean, you need somebody in the secondary. That's him. Go with him off the top of my head.
I would go Kamal Haddon because I think it's, how is Kamal Haddon? How does he handle himself when it's not, 15 days of structured spring practice? I would go Kamal Haddon. I would throw Elijah Simmons in there, AP, as two guys who flash. You like where you're at with them at the end of spring practice. Can they carry that over throughout the summer to put themselves in a place where they're a factor come fall?
Well, I agree with both of you wholeheartedly on the defense. I'm going to flip to offense. Whoever is playing right tackle and left guard needs to have a big summer. They need to really kind of make a move. They need somebody, whether that's Andre Carrick, whether that's Addison Nichols playing left guard, whether that's, J.J. Crawford or Gerald Mincey being the right tackle. They need somebody up front to assert themselves this summer and make a move, because you would like to have at least some inkling heading into fall camp of, okay, this guy's taken a step, or this guy's really progressed. This guy's mentality has changed in spring. If it's literally copy and paste from spring as you head into fall, to me, that's a little bit worrisome.
Yeah, I was going to go the offensive line as well. If you go back to the secondary, maybe I think that they'll play, hopefully that they'll play more than just the set 5 out there, but maybe a Christian Charles going back to safety, continue to get comfortable back with your home position after spring, be a guy that can go in there and get Wesley Walker or Jalen McCullough instead of having those guys stay out there for 70 or 80 snaps like in years past. So maybe Christian Charles as well, but I agree with all y'all's as well. Let's go to Bill Ingval. What should the fan expectations be for both Tennessee football and Tennessee basketball next season? Brent, you want to do football and then Grant do hoops?
I think from a football standpoint, probably 9 wins is probably where I start at, and kind of go from there. So that's where I would put Tennessee at right now is 8 or 9 wins, depending on how healthy they stay. If they find the answers that they need to find at the on the offensive line position. So that's where I would probably go, looking at the schedule, looking at where Tennessee's at. I think that Texas A&M game, Austin and I were talking about this on the phone. I guess Austin was yesterday or day before we were talking about that. I think that A&M game, I agree with Austin. I'm going to steal your thunder on the podcast here, AP. I know that's a shock to you. I think that A&M game is a key game when you start looking about counting wins and where's that at? What is that A&M team going to be this year, and how's Tennessee in that game?
Well, for me, it's two games, and I told you about both of them. It's Florida, and I know everybody says they don't have anything. I agree, but you just don't win in Gainesville a lot, so you got to win that one. You win that one, and then the A&M game. What are they? Do they bounce back? Does the change in offensive coordinator and offensive philosophy and all that does that go? Boom, as in like,
because it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, it sounds like a disaster. It sounds like it's going to go boom, as in like an explosion. Like the goat that ate the dynamite on Andy Griffith, but it's not. Who knows? Maybe those two egos can coexist. We've seen stuff like this happen before, where one coach puts his pride away, and it clicks and it works. Maybe they are the bounce back team in this league. If not, and Tennessee wins Florida and wins against Texas A&M, I think at that point 9-3 is absolute bottom of the barrel what Tennessee is. And then at that point, you're really playing with house money. Go see what kind of magic you can make happen the back part of October and November.
Grant, before you talk basketball, under that scenario, who's playing the French harp at Texas A&M to get the goat out of town?
People forget that they were just making that overpass, blowing up that land so they could put the road out by the mayor's brother's gas station.
That's exactly right.
We do
That's
forget
the
that.
whole
You're
thing.
right.
Andy was always getting political. If he was one thing, he was political. I think basketball, there's kind of a cookie cutter set of expectations for a Rick Barnes team, unless it's like that 1920 team where it's pretty clear going in they're going to be reloading and they're going to struggle a little bit. But
What
I mean,
were they
for this
like?
team,
Who was coaching them in 1920?
2019, 2020.
I
There
thought
we
the
go.
same thing.
I don't know who was coaching them in 1920.
Were they wearing smoky gray back then?
They were way back. They had the Vols script and everything, and Fulkerson was a sophomore and averaging 8 and 6.
To play off the screen handle that just asked the question, here's your sign.
People either love the way too early top 25 rankings or hate them. Tennessee was 17 in ESPN's original way too early a couple of weeks ago. They went on that portal run with Dalton Knapp, Chris Ledlum, Jordan Gainey, and they went up 10 spots to number 7. So I think that tells you what they did, what people think of what they did in the portal and how they helped this team. I think they can be better. I think they can be more talented than last season's team. Obviously, you can be more consistent because last season's team was maddeningly inconsistent down the stretch. But at the same time, it's college basketball. You can be a better team and not go on a Sweet 16 run like this team did this past season. So I think the expectation is 20-plus wins in the regular season, flirt with that top 4 in the SEC standings, go from there, be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Do you see them there's obviously nobody's expecting Julian and Josiah to really be back. If that plays out that way, and they have some roster spots, do you see them trying to convince someone to reclassify to get here like DeLeon did, but actually being a serviceable body?
I don't know if they'll have spots, honestly. They got to get to 13 as it is right now. They would have to basically have 2 roster departures or roster changes or whatever to get down to 12 to have that opportunity to have that scholarship spot like they had with Freddie in January. So I don't know who those options would be. I don't know if they'll ever bring anybody in mid-season that they think can help them, unless it's a situation like Santi was a few years ago where he had to play because Lamonte had that surgery and suddenly you're really hurting there in the backcourt. So I think it would take a very special situation.
Didn't Ziegler reclassify, or am I misremembering?
He reclassified in August, though. It wasn't in January. It was.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think anybody could reclassify this summer? Like they could?
No, not that I've heard of at the moment.
And again, they've got to make room numbers-wise. Now, Rick Barnes says the numbers are going to take care of themselves, but right now they got numbers that they got to work with.
You got about 8 days to take care of yourself, numbers. So let's get to work.
Get to it. We got plenty more questions to get into here on the Volquest Mailbag podcast. But first, Austin Price, a quick word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
You know, life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
We're proud to have you here on the Volquest Mailbag podcast. Thanks for being here. And we'll just continue to roll on. Kind of on that note with expectations for the football season, Vol Slater wants to know chances the Vols enter the Georgia game next season undefeated. And I mean that's a tall task when Georgia's the second to last game on the schedule. Games we've already kind of mentioned at Florida. It's always tough playing in the swamp. Home game against South Carolina, that's notable because of what happened last year, off week. Texas A&M, at Alabama, at Kentucky. I'll go ahead and say Tennessee likely won't be undefeated, Austin, by the time Georgia rolls around. If you are, then heck, that is a really, really good season.
If I'm a Tennessee fan, that's okay. You just don't need them with too many losses. If they roll in there with just one loss, I mean, that means you're playing for the East.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean.
I'm going to say they're not going to be undefeated.
You might be undefeated at home by the time the Georgia game gets here. Like Brent said, because it's that Texas A&M game basically that hinges on that. But no, I don't think as a whole, going to Florida, going to Alabama, just kind of going to Kentucky, the schedule you have is going to be tough. It's gonna be, you're gonna slip up at some point. It's gonna be tough to beat Alabama twice in a row after not beating them for however many years it was.
Yeah, this year's on the road. I agree with you though. Great chance of being undefeated at home. South Carolina and A&M, the two biggest games at Neyland Stadium prior to that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Dalval 14. Will NFL scouts view Joe Milton the same way as Anthony Richardson, Brand? From a physical makeup and high ceiling.
I don't get the love affair for Anthony Richardson, and that's not a knock on Joe Milton. I'm not trying to say that. It's just I think when you're a career 53% passer going all the way back through your high school days, there's accuracy concerns. Will people fall in love with Joe Milton's arm strength? Absolutely. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that Joe's going to have to show is consistency, game in, game out. I think this was an unusual draft. We'll see what the draft looks like next year. Everybody's always looking for a quarterback, but you had really three teams this year in the draft, Grant, at the top of the pecking order. Of course, Carolina traded to get up there, who were just in desperate need of a quarterback. The Colts had no other options. They had to take a quarterback in the draft. Obviously, the Texans had to have a quarterback, and the Panthers had to have a quarterback. Do we see three of the top five teams in the draft next year? Do we see it that quarterback heavy at the top of the draft where somebody really takes a leap out on somebody high up in the draft like the Colts did with Anthony Richardson?
No, probably not, just because it doesn't feel like that happens every single year. It feels like that's definitely more rare than common. I think physically, sure, you can connect some dots with Anthony Richardson and Joe Milton. Joe Milton's also 2 years older. Joe Milton's also, he's transferred, he's sat, he won a job, and then Hendon Hooker took over when he got hurt. I mean, Anthony Richardson played, and he was basically the man from the time he took his first snap. I think they'll look at that differently. And yeah, like just the passer, rating and the stats and just the arm. I mean, the arm strength, obviously, like Brent said, it's there, and people are going to drool over that during the pre-draft process a year from now. But at the same time, what's he look like this season? His completion percentage, how many different throws can he make? How consistently can he do it? I think that's going to be the biggest factor with him, along with his age and the fact that he's just a couple years older. And
remember, Austin, it just takes one team to fall in love with you, right?
That's right. Just takes one. And again, if he has a good year, he's going to rocket up boards because physically he's going to offer what teams look for. I mean, again, it's why college coaches fall in love with, an extra half inch or an extra tenth off of 40 time or whatever. Everybody, no matter what level of football, you're always trying to find that prototypical player, and Joe Milton is that type of prototypical player. If he has a good year, he'll go rocketing up, passing several of these quarterbacks, in my opinion. Not all of them, but several of them.
AP, let's stay with you. Vols 1024 wants to know how Gerald Mincey was this spring. Obviously, he is a huge topic of conversation because Tennessee's looking for a tackle opposite of John Campbell. He's making the switch from left to right. How did Gerald Mincey do this spring?
He was pouty early in spring about being at right tackle. He didn't want to play on the right side. He wanted to stay on the left side. Truth be told, it was Darnell Wright who offered to move to the right side last year. So, it wouldn't rock any boats on the other side. Now, that luxury this year. So, Mincey's moved over. I think he was better towards the back end of spring, but I'm not sure he's ever going to be just this all-world player. So, again, to me, can you find a combination of he and JJ that are, that can kind of patch it together over on the right side opposite John Campbell? I think that's probably what you're looking for again.
It's where you were last year. And again, no year's the same. Of course, things were different. You had Hooker at quarterback. You had Darnell Wright on the other side. But the nation's number one offense had patchwork at left tackle all last year. And again, led the nation in offense. So we'll see. Let's go, Brent here, Nashville 615. Final SEC schedule predictions for Tennessee ahead of the spring meetings in Destin. As at the end of this month, that's the expected, timeline, if you will, for an announcement for the future of the scheduling in the SEC.
Well, I think they're going to go with the 6-3 model. I think Alabama and Vanderbilt will be two of the three, and then I think it gets back down to whether or not they want to go with the tradition-laden games, or if they're going to try to come up with some formula that says, hey, this makes it more balanced, and they end up taking South Carolina as the third opponent for Tennessee over Kentucky. But I think Alabama and Vanderbilt are locks for 2 of the 3, and I think the third one comes down to whatever formula the conference office decides to come up with that they think makes it, balanced and fair. But I do think it's going to end up being the 6-3 model, Grant.
Harder or easier? I would assume easier moving forward than what Tennessee's been used to the last however many years it's been Florida and Georgia and Alabama every single year, guaranteed to play it on the road against those teams or whatever. I think the only kind of mode moving forward would be easier. Am I wrong thinking that?
No, I think for Tennessee, whether it's South Carolina or Vanderbilt South Carolina or Kentucky as your third team, Austin, to get out of that gauntlet of playing Alabama, Georgia, Florida every year, which nobody else in the conference has had to do every year, it's a win for Tennessee regardless of who that third opponent becomes.
It is. I mean, ultimately, you're going to play, Alabama and Georgia every other year, but you're not playing them every year. And those are the top 2 teams in the league. They've been the, 2 of the top teams, 2 of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country for the last, 5 or 6 years, even before Georgia's back-to-back national titles. Georgia was ascending. So, again, getting Georgia off the schedule every year is a nice perk. Now, again, is a huge drop-off? No, because you're going to add other quality teams that you maybe not have been playing every year or every couple of years to the roster or to the schedule. But at the same time, I think it's definitely a help, and it makes the schedule for everybody else in this league a little more difficult when they have to play Georgia now every other year.
Yeah, I mean it should be hard in this league. Nobody should have an easy walk through this league, and and I think that's why the league is so concerned, Eric, about balancing who those 3 opponents are. What is the best looking balance when you evaluate the last 10 years, 15 years of it? How do you balance this thing out? I think that's why the league's taking so long with this.
Yeah, I think there were like 3 different things that are going into the 3 permanent opponents, trying to preserve history and rivalries, trying to make it as fair as possible, and something else. And I think you take care of trying to preserve, histories and rivalries with the first 2, right? I mean, again, you can only do so much. So we'll see what it looks like. I believe the last thing Ross Dellinger put out there a couple months ago, kind of on this, and he's been around this story the entire time, was that third opponent was going to be South Carolina for Tennessee. So we will see. Pine wants to know, Grant, why don't you lead us off here? What is your way too early SEC East rankings after spring practice?
Georgia, and then Tennessee, and then who knows what? I don't know. Vanderbilt.
I think it's either South Carolina or Kentucky after that.
Right. I agree with Austin where he said, it feels like every time this year, Florida, the sky's falling and everything's going wrong. And when Tennessee plays them, they're pretty tough in September. And regardless of what happens from there, the rest of their season. So going to Gainesville, obviously, is going to be tough, but it does feel like Georgia. It feels like Tennessee. Then it feels like who knows where Florida mixes in with Kentucky, South Carolina, Missouri. I think Vanderbilt's going to be pretty bad because it's Vanderbilt.
AP, I would go Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, and then Missouri, Vanderbilt. What would you say?
I would have South Carolina third.
Yeah, and that's fair.
They're more steady at quarterback now. Obviously, Kentucky brought in the kid from NC State. Leary, good solid player, but again, like Kentucky's lost some key pieces. But I don't think there's going to be this hard fall off. I just think Kentucky's road, now that the league is going to be expanding and going to this model that we just talked about, it gets far tougher for Stoops to get to that magic number, to get the rollover contract and all that stuff and the bonuses and all that he's just had a cakewalk to the last several years, especially with Braum back at Louisville, because that's another, and becomes more of a coin flip because Braum's a really solid football coach.
Well, then that beckons that question too, AP. What is the league going to put? What is the league going to say in regards to that Power 5 rule that you got to play a Power 5 opponent non-conference? Are they going to scrap that when they go to the 9-game model? That's going to be an interesting debate that I think is probably not talked about a whole lot with the SEC spring meetings, because everybody's talking about 3 common opponents, and that's kind of where it's at. But that Power 5 clause, does it remain in effect, or does it go out the window? It's going to be an interesting deal.
And will teams, if they scrap it, sorry to jump in front of you, but if they scrap it, will teams decide to say, hey, I'm still going to play that? Like Georgia playing Georgia Tech year in and year out, that should be okay for Georgia, right? But South Carolina, Clemson, Kentucky, Louisville, Some of these other ones, some teams might decide to keep doing it. Also,
maybe, but coaches are going to push to not do it.
Oh, I agree.
Administrators are going to say, "Man, we get like atmosphere gate, tickets. It makes more sense to play Florida State than it does, FAU. Let's keep playing FSU. But Hubs is right. Like when we get to spring meetings, there's going to be that. It's going to be the 8-0 model. Nobody's going to pick that. It's going to be a 9-game schedule. So it's either going to be 9-0 or 9-1. And in my opinion, based off talking to people, the TV contracts are going to really push hard for 9-1 because they've been getting 8-1, which means they were getting 9 games. If it's just 9-0, they're not really getting anything more. So like they're going to push hard for the 9-1 model. And I think that's, where, it's going to get interesting because coaches are going to want 9-0.
Yeah. And teachers are
going to want 9-1.
Yeah. For everybody to understand what that means, it's different than the 6-3. So I don't want anybody to get confused on the numbers. Okay. 9-0 would mean 9 conference games, and the 0 would mean you play no Power 5 opponent.
Or you don't have to. You don't have to play.
You don't have to. Right. The 9-1 model would be you're making and adding a conference game, but you're keeping that clause in that says you have to play a Power 5 opponent every year in the contract in your scheduling as well. And again, lots of money, Grant, on TV. Does TV step in and say, you know what? 9 conference games is great. All right. But we were getting 9 quality games every year out of teams because they were playing 8 conference games and the 1 Power 5. We're going to give you $75 million or whatever the number is going to end up being to each individual school. We want 10 quality games, not 9 quality games. That's going to be the debate that comes out of Destin. It's going to be fascinating to keep an eye on.
And I think the money is what's going to win that debate because 2 versus 3 in terms of, kind of garbage games or premier games, you're going to take the premier games. You're going to take as many Power 5. And it's going to be a new look SEC with Texas and Oklahoma, and they're going to want to see what they look like against other conferences, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, and you've seen Texas schedule Michigan. Tennessee's recently in the last year has signed up for a trip to Washington in 2031 or whatever it is, which is way on down the line. But the point is, Tennessee still has that trip to Nebraska. If it goes 9-0, like Nebraska goes away, Washington goes away, in theory, they didn't have to. But I mean, no coach is going to sign up for those kind of games. The coaches are going to push one way, the admin are going to push another. And at the end of the day, I think it's, because the coaches will get told, hey, it's a lot easier to make the playoff now. You have 12 teams instead of 4. So you can play that extra Power 5 game.
Let's also not forget the Syracuse and Atlanta in a couple of years. And, let's throw it back to 2018.
Yeah, I'm just talking about traditional home and homes. I don't talk about the stupid games that these ADs book.
Let's go back to Charlotte and play West Virginia because we ain't done that in recent memory.
Yeah.
So stupid.
JG still feeling the ill effects of that missed block on the first play.
Money talks, fellas. Money talks.
All right, let's get through a couple more here, and then we'll call quits. Vol for Life TP. AP, about what time does Brew McCoy run? I would assume in the 40-yard dash. And how does Dante Thornton compare to Jalen Hyatt and route running and ability after the catch?
I think Brew's a 4-5 kind of guy. As for Dante Thornton, I mean, do we really know what Jalen Hyatt was like after the catch? Because every time he caught the ball, it was wide open. So he didn't really have to make anybody miss. I mean, and I think that was part of the kind of the question about him in the NFL is, what are you like after the catch? When you catch a ball at 8 yards, what are you like? There a lot of those plays he was just wide open, and some of that speed, some of it's scheme. Dante Thornton is just taller. I mean, Dante Thornton is 6'5", a legit 6'5". And, as far as route runner, I didn't see enough of him out there this spring to be able to judge him as a route runner. So that part I can't tell you about. I mean, we saw him out there for a few practices, then he would, miss. But you're out there such a small amount of time. It's not like I studied him to, say, oh, I think he runs a great routes.
I'm going to make a bold prediction. He's going to be 10 yards behind somebody against Virginia in the opener in Nashville.
I don't disagree with that.
In the first quarter. He's going to be 10 yards behind somebody. Now, I don't know what that translates into, how great of a season he has, but he's going to be 10 yards behind somebody early in that football game in Nashville.
I think it was the South Carolina game, 2021. I think it was Javonte Payton that got behind the secondary. And that's when it just like dawned on me, like, how does this just keep happening consistently? And it just hasn't stopped.
I was going to say, is it going to be a Javonte Payton situation where they go to him, play number 2 of the game, and then hopefully it won't be because they never looked his way again?
No, I don't think it'll be that way.
No, Thornton's going to be in the slot, and the slot gets a lot of balls thrown his way, and it is a factor there. But
Brent, this is kind of the third. Sorry to cut you off. This is kind of the third straight year where you have a different body type in the slot. It's very unique.
Well, and I think they'll split time there in the slot this year. I mean, you're going to have 2 vastly different body types this year in the slot on the same team. When you talk about playing Squirrel White, and you talk about playing Thornton. I mean, that's a very different. And I think Josh Heupel can use that to his advantage, particularly if you can keep those. If you got those guys on the field, if one of them could play enough outside that you could switch them up. Because if you're the safety, and you've got man coverage there, you're worried about Dante Thornton doing something different than what Squirrel White's going to do to you in terms of routes and things that they run. So I think it gives Josh Heupel a lot of and Joey Halsley a lot of creative opportunities by playing 2 vastly different size or type players in the spot within the same year. You're right. I mean, Velus Jones was very different than Jalen Hyatt year 1 to year 2, but this will be unusual in having 2 guys in the same year that are very different.
All right, last one. Let's go to Vol Nugs 1421. What is the biggest thing Nico needs to work on this offseason following spring practice? And you can't say learning the system.
I think it's just, he has a tendency to miss high. You watch any of his throws in practice, and when he missed high. And I think if he gets that more in control, I don't know if that's elbow angle, if it's how he steps, or what it is. But if they get that corrected, I think then watch out.
Yeah, I would agree with
Speed. Can I go speed? Go ahead, Hobbs. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Grant. You go speed.
Can I go speed of the system? Is that can I get a ruling on that, Kane?
Yeah. I mean, operating the offense, the tempo, sure. That's not knowing the system. That's operating it. So yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest adjustment for anybody that tries to step into this offense, especially a quarterback, because you have to make such quick decisions, and you have to get to the point where you're not thinking about those decisions; you're just making them. I mean, that's what Hendon Hooker did so well is he made his reads and he got rid of the ball instantly. I think Nico, any freshman coming into the system, especially quarterback, that's going to be the biggest jump. That's going to be the biggest hurdle to make.
Yep, I agree there mentally, and then I agree with Austin physically, particularly on the outs. I thought if there was one throw that was high this year or this spring, it was the out patterns. And I don't know if that's a fundamental thing. I don't know if that's him just trying to overdrive the ball. It's not like he missed all of them, so I don't want somebody listening to this going, oh, my gosh, he's just an inaccurate passer. I don't think that's the case. I just don't think he was as consistent with that throw as you would like for him to be, and that's something physically I think that he can work on and improve on this summer.
The Volquest Mailbag Podcast, it is presented each and every week by Exterior Home Solutions. Go ahead and give them a call today for a free estimate. That number is 865-524-5888. You can find them online for any home solution needs that you need. That's exteriorhomesolutions.com. For Austin Price, Grant Ramey, Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for sending in those questions and for joining us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast here on this Thursday morning.